Good afternoon, HSA staff. Welcome, everyone. My name is Jessica Lime, and I'm a project manager with Ellis Planning Associates, helping to plan the strategic plan with HSA. Also on the line, we have Galen Ellis, who is our president. And we're going to wait a few minutes for everyone to get into the meeting room. As you enter the room, please review the welcome slide and complete our polls. We have muted the phone lines, but please feel free to ask questions or provide any comments in the general chat on the bottom right. Chat works similarly to other instant messaging, where you type into the empty bar at the bottom of the pod, and then to send your message, press the message balloon or enter or return. And by default, everyone sees all chat messages. So we're going to get started in just a few minutes to allow for more participants to enter and to take the time to complete our polls. Welcome again, everyone. For those of you who have just joined us, my name is Jessica Lime, and I am a project manager with Ellis Planning Associates. Also on the line, we have Galen Ellis, our president, and Jessica Randolph and Marcus Pimentel from Santa Cruz County HSA. And just wanted to give everyone a few minutes to review the welcome slide and complete both of our polls. So we have a poll asking which HSA division do you work in, and it looks like we're starting to get some great representation from the 5 divisions within HSA. So we have administration, behavioral health, clinics, environmental health, and public health folks on the line. We're also asking you to respond to our poll with regards to your all-time favorite Halloween costume and or treat of choice. Hopefully you can start getting some ideas for next year. And again, we're going to wait probably 2 more minutes just to give a few more folks time to get into the meeting room, and then we're going to go ahead and get started on our presentation. Thanks so much. Okay, it looks like some folks are having some difficulties with their audio. We prefer that everyone calls in using the phone line. So we have the phone call-in information and conference code, and to turn off your computer mic. You can do that on the top toolbar. You'll see there is an icon up there that looks like a speaker. It's on the left-hand side. If you press that, I believe it should be green. If you press it, it should turn that into a grayed out mic, and you won't get the double audio through your computer as well as your phone line. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, welcome everyone. My name is Jessica Lime, and I'm a project manager with Ellis Planning Associates. Let's go ahead and move on to the presentation. I just want to thank everyone for attending this presentation this afternoon. HSA leadership, so Mimi Hall, Jessica Randolph, and Marcus Pimentel, who are leading the strategic planning process, wanted to take this time to update you about where we are at in this process and what we aim to achieve this next fiscal year with your input and participation. But first, we want to provide a brief strategic plan overview. So I just want to give a quick reminder to please feel free to write your questions in the general chat pod to the bottom right throughout this presentation. We have muted all of the phone lines. So if you have any questions, please take the time to write those in the general chat. And we're going to have a question and answer session at the end of this presentation, so we'll be able to answer all of your questions then. Okay, so the diagram below shows the hierarchy of the strategic and operational plan elements. The purpose of the HSA strategic plan is to establish a roadmap for the future of the organization. So why you exist, what you stand for, and what you want to achieve through your vision, mission, values, focus areas, and goals. So your vision is your futuristic view regarding your ideal state or conditions that you aspire to change or create. This is the agency's North Star. Multiple agencies or organizations can have a similar vision. A vision is a very broad statement. What really sets you apart is your mission. Your mission is your core purpose, what you do, and why. And it could it could include a few elements of the how you do it. So, you do it through outreach and education. And then the values are the principles, beliefs, and underlying assumptions that guide your work. This gets at the how as well, but a different kind of how. It's more emotional. You do it through collective impact and justice and equity. Your focus areas are broad directions or proposals that catalyze movement towards your vision. Your focus areas are very broad, and they're broad buckets that really set the stage for the remainder of your operational plan. So your goals, strategies, and objectives and key steps would all follow those broad focus areas. Your goals are also broad statements about your long-term expectations or outcomes for each focus area. And then you get to your operational plan. So your strategic plan will be implemented with an agency-wide operational plan, which will lay out what you do and how you do it. And that's through your strategies, objectives, and key steps. Your strategies are approaches for achieving your goals, so what you will do. And your objectives also get to the what, but it includes the specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound actions, so those SMART actions that work towards your goals and strategies. So it helps you to start looking at measurements as well of how you're going to achieve your success. And then your key steps are your tactics or activities necessary to achieve each objective, so how you will do it. Beginning in 2021, the operational plan will be revisited every 2 years to make ongoing adjustments based on progress, changing environmental conditions, funding regulations, and other internal and external conditions. So I just wanted to give you a brief overview of the strategic plan timeline. You are aligning your planning timeline with the County of Santa Cruz strategic and operational plans, and they began about a year in advance. So thus your strategic plan that you're currently working on will be from 2018 to 2024. The first two-year operational plan will be from 2019 to 2021. And then in 2023, 2024, you're going to review and revise your strategic plan as needed, and it will become a 5-year strategic plan at that point. I'm going to now hand over to Jessica Randolph, who will be reviewing your progress to date, including why HSA is developing a strategic plan and how staff have been included in the process. Jessica?
Good afternoon, everybody. Excuse my cold. First off, Marcus and I wanted to thank you all for taking the time out of your busy day to hear this update on our strategic planning efforts. This virtual setting has been a great way for us to experiment getting information out to all staff, but it's also a great way for us to hear from you. So once again, we just want to remind you to take the opportunity to put any questions you might have in the chat, into the general chat part. And at the end, we'll definitely be asking for some volunteers as well. So please engage with us as much as possible. So why are we developing an agency strategic plan? We want to try to engage all of the divisions in aligning each of the divisions' priorities with an agency focus areas, goals, strategies, and objectives. And during this process, we've tried and continue to try to be as inclusive of all staff in this process. So as you all are aware, HSA is made up of 5 divisions: public health, behavioral health, environmental health, clinics, and administration. And so we're trying to build on our existing foundation or those existing plans. Of those, behavioral health has a mental health strategic plan. Our alcohol and drug program has a plan. Public health just completed their first ever strategic plan. And administration, environmental health, and clinics have not yet conducted a strategic plan, although I know some of those divisions are just starting or will be starting soon. Of those divisions that have done planning, they've each identified separate priority needs and goals, which we will make sure are incorporated into the agency-wide strategic plan. In addition, there are other plans with within the different programs. For example, maternal, child, and adolescent health has a plan, so we want to try to align those as much as possible. And as Jessica Lime already said, there's the county overall is working on their 6-year strategic plan, which also includes a lot of continuous quality improvement initiatives, which I'm sure you guys have been kept aware of. So what have we built together so far? We'd like to think of the mission, vision, and values as the scaffolding that holds us up, that holds up the structure of our strategic plan. We had 4 in-person workshops with 90 staff. Then we did a staff opinion survey in which over 250 employees responded. So HSA staff has chosen our mission, vision, and value statements. Then we did an environmental scan via 10 virtual focus groups. 60 HSA staff helped identify and prioritize the key internal strengths and weaknesses and external opportunities and threats, or the SWOT analysis that affects HSA. All the data was collected in that SWOT analysis was presented to you, our HSA staff, at priority focus area workshops at the end of May. This is where about 90 staff members from previous workshops prioritized the key driving and restraining forces affecting our ability to achieve our vision. This helped us set the stage for the development of the HSA's draft focus areas. And then at the end of May, around 90 staff used the environmental scan findings to identify broad, bold moves that would address the restraining forces and drive HSA towards our vision. Ellis Planning and Associates aggregated the bold moves data, and with input from our HSA leadership team, they were consolidated into 3 agency focus areas. And Marcus will be presenting that data on you a little bit later this afternoon. So I think it's time for another poll, right?
Yeah.
So, and let's see. So the poll should say, have you participated in the development of HSA's vision, mission, and values, the SWOT analysis or the environmental scan, the focus areas, or none of the above?
And just for clarity, these are specific to the workshops you might have participated in.
So for some of you guys, this is the first introduction, so this is great. I'm glad you guys are participating. We're excited to kind of get you up to speed on what we've done since last March. And thank you all for who have previously been involved in helping us get to where we are right now. It's exciting. We're reaching out to some new folks here. So through our mission, vision, and values workshops and the staff opinion survey, HSA staff we've chosen the following mission and vision statements. Our mission is to promote and ensure a healthy community and environment by providing education, outreach, and comprehensive health services in an inclusive and accessible manner. And then our vision is Santa Cruz County is a healthy, safe, and thriving community for all. Staff also chose values through the workshops and through that staff survey, and the values were drafted into statements. So the key values up there would be integrity, quality, compassion and respect, equity and justice, collective impact, capacity building, and positivity. And like I said, there's statements on the intranet, I think Marcus is going to put that in there, that really tried to capture all the additional verbiage and feedback that was representative of staff for the values that we all hold together. So in the priority focus area workshops in late May, staff used the environmental scan findings to identify the agency's focus areas. HSA leadership team then provided input, and the focus areas that came out of the workshop were consolidated to 3 final focus areas, which are organizational culture, operational excellence, and community collaboration. Now I'm going to hand it over to you, right, Marcus?
Yeah. So hello. Some of you may be hearing my voice for the first time. Marcus Pimentel, month 3, day 1. So I'm grateful and humbled to be here, part of HSA as Assistant Director working underneath Mimi and with all of you. What we're going to be focusing next on is what's coming up. So thank you, Jessica, for recapping where we've been and all the engagement. And what we want to emphasize is we are still focusing with how we're going to collaborate together to move forward together based on the values, mission, and vision that you've all helped us create. It's only with your feedback and participation that we're going to do this. So we're thankful for the nearly 74 of you participating today, and we're looking, heads up, we're going to be asking for more participation coming up. So what's coming next and where we've been? What we plan to achieve coming forward in the year ahead is we want to build up the rest of our HSA strategic plan. What this means is moving with and forward with our mission, vision, values, our SWOT analysis, and into establishing our priority focus areas, the goals for those focus areas, the strategies that will feed those goals, and those key SMART objectives, objectives that we can measure, objectives that are very clear and distinct, that we will know if we've achieved those, have we done this many widgets. That will be coming next, solidifying the goals, strategies, and the objectives and key steps to move us forward. And we're excited about that, and we'll need your help. So how we're going to do that, our project plans. So starting December 11th and 12th, we're going to be asking for participation in 2 specific workshops. A goal and strategy workshop limited to 30 participants per site. On December 11th in Watsonville, we'll have 30 participants, 30 volunteers, 30 eager, passionate people ready to help. And on December 12th, 30 more volunteers to help us in repeating the same strategies, the same approach for a workshop that's going to define our goals and our strategies moving forward under our focus areas. I just want to remind you, stay tuned. In just a few slides, we're going to be asking for your volunteer. After that, we're going to be seeking your input into developing those goals and strategies. The leadership team will refine those. We'll be communicating with you, possibly via surveys and other tools to update you on what those goals are, what those final strategies might be. And then we move more specifically into action planning workshops. Expect some more engagement, some more help from you to identify those specific actions we're going to take and the specific objectives we're going to use. We'll finish the year in around May, hopefully no later than May, maybe into June, with finalizing our operational plan. So what we expect to do is by the end of this fiscal year, move into a place where our entire strategic plan and operating plan is ready to move forward with all of you together. So let me talk a little bit about the goals and strategy workshop that's coming up. Those December 11th and 12th workshops. They're designed around two primary focuses that have guided us throughout this entire process, the rational aim and the experiential aim. On the rational side, what we want to do is make sure we're getting input from you on our goals and input from you on what those strategies to meet those goals so that we can effectively develop a strong operating plan. And we're going to continually welcome input from across all of HSA so that we have equity and responsiveness that reflects who we are. And what I mean by that is in those 30 participants that we're going to have at each of these workshops, we've identified the types of participants by making sure that we're representative of who we are as HSA, that we have a balance between new HSA employees and senior HSA employees. We have a balance of where you work. Is it in South County, Mid-County, North County? We have a balance of where you work, which division. We have a balance of where you are in the organization, whether you're an experienced manager or a new employee or providing frontline services or working with clinicians or working in environmental health. Wherever you are at, we want to have a representative group on these workshops. So we are asking for everybody to put their hand up, and we're going to welcome having 120 volunteers for 60 slots. And then it'll be our job to help work with some of those volunteers and refine down to make sure that the final 60 represent our workforce as many demographic ways as possible. So I want to move next and talk a little bit about what those workshops might feel like, what it means to set a goal and a strategy and an objective. So what you have in front of you in the slide is an example of a live segment of our current countywide strategic plan. The primary focus area is comprehensive health and safety. That's an established goal, and it feels like us. That should resonate with all of us. The goal that was set up under that focus area was health equity, promote a safe and healthy community that nurtures body and mind across all ages and social conditions. So that's an example of goals we're going to be setting forward during these workshops. What a strategy might be is a little bit more specific about how we're going to implement that. So generically, in this case, we'll leverage our community partners to help improve the social determinants of health. That doesn't tell us a measurable criteria yet, but that gives us a little bit of guidance of what strategies we're going to use to implement that goal. And then that specific SMART objective, what we can measure, in this case was community education, that by June of 2020, just a few months from now, 7 months, we will develop a community education and outreach campaign across the issues of homelessness, mental health, and substance use disorders and health equity. So in that case, that objective is very definable. We can tell whether we met that or not. The strategy leads us to that objective, and then that strategy makes sure we're meeting that goal. That's an example of what a goal might be and how we're going to set those up and what it feels like and the strategies and objectives that we're going to be working on December 11th and 12th. So we talked a little bit, and Jessica previewed this concept of what are those potential focus areas, and they came from you. So in the workshops, nearly 50 of you have participated at one level or another on our prior sessions. In those prior workshops, some of you may have been there, and we've identified a lot of focus areas, 12, 15 different focus areas that we might move forward on. And what we've distilled down to is the top 3. And some of these may resonate and remind you of the countywide strategic plan, but what we've done is distill into what we feel 3 distinct but very broad categories: internal staffing, internal operations, and external community. And where we want to first focus is our primary focus areas on our organizational culture. So this is how we collectively can help improve the culture around us. So examples of this focus area that on December 11th and 12th, potential goals that might come out are developing a comprehensive workforce development plan, optimizing employee health, safety, and well-being, and equitable engagement of all staff. So what that might feel like as particular strategies under comprehensive workforce development is, how do we help build up staff capacity? How do we make sure that we have redundancy and support across our divisions? How do we promote retention and succession planning? Those might be particular strategies, and then under those strategies, we'll define specific steps and measurable things. We will have X number of trainees appointed by X date. We will have more redundancy in our systems. So we're going to be developing strategies to support those goals. Within equitable engagement of staff, that's one that we heard over and over again, and it is clearly stated in all the notes that there's a concern about the institutional racism that our community has and that might still exist or used to exist within operations across the county. And that's a particular example of, if we are embracing equitable engagement of staff, we have to also embrace that, we have to own that at certain points in time we might have had institutional racism around us, and how do we move forward around that? So there might be a specific strategies around that topic. So if that makes sense, this focus area on organizational culture, what you see in front of you are 3 potential goals. We're not saying those are the goals. These are just examples of goals that might come up at the workshop. And then there'll be specific strategies that will hone in a little bit closer on what to do next. So our second focus area I mentioned was on our operations. So we start with our organizational culture. Now we'll move into operational excellence. This is how we move across our systems. How do we develop systems within divisions, across the entire department that makes us excel at all levels and provides staff the resources and ability to do their job without as much barriers as possible. Potential goals that we might see out of these workshops are personal process improvement, collaborative integration and communication, investment in high-quality IT infrastructure, mission-driven fiscal strategies, and equity in program and resources and support. So again, these are just examples. We're not saying these are the goals, and nor we are recommending that these be the goals. We want to look to our staff during the workshops to see what areas they believe we should focus on within our systems. And then, again, developing the strategy. So examples of areas we might focus on within personnel process improvement. Maybe we lean from all the primo skills and we really focus on continuous process improvement. Within collaborative integration and communication, this is one that's near and dear to a lot of us. One place might be focusing on employee feedback loop and how we make sure that employees' feedback gets to their supervisors or gets to ways to leading forward with collaborative change. Within high-quality IT infrastructure, I'm sure everybody's got an opinion on IT one way or another, whether it's IT training or how we might make smarter investments or some improved investments in IT. And then within mission-driven fiscal strategies, how do we make sure that we're allocating our resources that are supporting our long-term strategic plans? Finally, our third focus area is community collaboration. So we're now moving from within HSA outwardly to our community. And this is a place that we all resonate with. This is why we're here. We are here to provide amazing, excellent services to our community at the time they need it and when they need it. So potential goals that we might fall under this is public relations and community engagement, humanizing health and healing, and improving client customer service. Now, all 3 of those are major lists for us, but they're also lists that I'm sure everybody can get excited about. Examples of things we might focus on within community engagement and public relations is branding and marketing. Those are topics that I've heard quite often since I've been here. How do we get ahead of community comments and public comments and political comments and start doing proactive community messaging, whether it's through social media or working with our media outlets? Within humanizing health and healing, how do we base our decisions based on trauma-informed care? Or within improving client customer service, how do we continue to deliver integrated quality services to all of our public? Those are, again, goals here in front of you that we might focus on, and any one of the strategies that we might focus on to make sure these goals happen. Some of you might be very familiar with this process of goal and strategy development, but in case you're not, or in case this made a lot of sense or none whatsoever, or now's the time for questions. We want to pause for a few seconds because the whole point of this, really the major point of this particular call and the last two calls we've been holding are listening to you, getting your questions on what made sense, what didn't make sense, maybe contrasting between the county-wide strategic plan and our own HSA-wide plan, or if you have any clarification questions on what's coming up next on December 11th and 12th and how you might be engaged or what those days are going to feel like. So we're going to go silent here for a second. We're going to ask you to start populating the general chat box, and we'll respond audibly to any questions that we see coming in. So we're going to go silent. We're going to count to a magic number in our own heads, and the pressure's on you to come up with some questions. So we're putting a question challenge. We won't talk again until we get one question. You can come up with any question you like. What's the weather going to be like? Hey, Brenda, is there going to be another PS event coming up? Thank you, Dave. We see a really perfect question about what are the requirements or minimum needs for participating in one of these upcoming workshops, and there are none. I'm sure anybody on this call might have a thought or opinion about how we might improve our organizational culture, how we might improve the system around us, or how we might collaborate better with our external stakeholders. So no requirements whatsoever, no prior participation required at all. We hope everybody would have the chance, if they haven't participated on one of these calls, to follow one of the recordings. Each one of these calls will be available on our internet for anybody to watch the first 30 minutes and get a sense of where we're at. But Dave, that's a great question, but there is no prerequisites for attending the December 11th or December 12th workshops. P.S. There's going to be really good food, and we'll have a little bit of fun too. I also got another really good question about what other time commitments might be required. Essentially for the workshops, while we hope some of those participants will like to continue forward as we develop action plans and more strategic narrowing, really that could be a one-off. If somebody has the time between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. on December 11th or 12th, that's all we might ask of them. But hopefully they can stay engaged, and everybody might stay engaged digitally or for other physical or more virtual meetings. So that's a great question. Thank you. So we see Brenda giving us an update that there may be an event coming up, but they're monitoring weather, and of course that won't happen. So thank you, Brenda, for making sure that doesn't happen. So we had a really good question. They're starting to pop now. I love it. What was the motivator for this level of strategic planning and improving our culture? It really came from listening. It came from the 2018 employee survey. It came from organizational experience of management and staff around. And then once we started through this process, it became very clear in all the workshops and all the outreach that there is a passion for this organization to step up, that there is a passion for engaging with all our employees, that there's a passion for connecting and making this. Most of us spend a lot of time here and sometimes too much time at work. So might as well make this a great experience while we're here. So I think the motivator was just all the input that we received. So that's a really strong question. Thank you for that.
I'm going to add on a little bit to that, Maria, as well. You know, we have Mimi, who unfortunately couldn't make it today, but she has a public health background, and she's actually done the strategic planning efforts before. And I'm not sure if some of you are aware, I actually used to help run the public health division, and so I helped the division do their first ever strategic plan, and it was my first kind of time walking through that process. And I think it really, I personally, and I think the public health managers had a lot of value out of that rather than just kind of the health officer, one person identifying kind of the trajectory of the division, we brought all the subject matter experts together, all the managers. We did survey staff to engage everybody in that process to help plan out the next 5 years of what those goal areas they wanted to focus on and how they were going to do it. So then when we had additional positions come available or funds, we knew that we'd already kind of had a game plan of where that was going to go. So I've already seen the value in the limited time that public health has had it, and I know Mimi has extensive experience in her history, and then it actually just perfectly aligned with all our new CAO. Carlos is doing the strategic plan. So it was really kind of great timing, but it just serves, I know it's definitely Mimi's passion is just kind of making sure that she's not leading us based on just her thoughts. She engages all the staff and all the divisions and tries to get us to work collaboratively together and align all those strategies and then goals and objectives.
A good question, Julie. Thank you about how strategic planning has historically affected outcomes, negative or positive. I can't speak to around here, but I can speak to my past experience, and I can also speak to being a parent. I think as a parent, I wish we would have done more strategic planning around the house, because as our kids got older, me and my wife became a little too stretched, going every different direction, kids' houses, events. So you can, and I'm being a little silly, but you can apply that to every organization I've ever worked at, overcommits themselves. Everybody has a passion. Everybody has great energy. Everybody has wonderful ideas to do something amazing. But when you get in the space without guiding principles, guiding goals, guiding vision, and then a strategic plan that defines where you're going to emphasize your focus, it's too easy to get too distracted. It's too easy to overcommit. And then when emergencies come up, you're not prepared. So I think for us, it's really about honing in and focusing on what we really, really want to make sure we accomplish, not to the detriment of other things, because we'll still do other things, but where we want to really be in the next 2 years and the next 5 years. So thank you for that question. About the events, the December 11th and December 12th events, they're separate one-off events. They are not continuous, so we will have participants only at one. If you sign up for one, you would not attend the other. We want to make them as broadly available to 60 people. So a good question about the work. So we're seeing a lot of good questions about the workshop. Maybe it was the plug on the food. But if somebody signs up and they're selected, if they're unable to participate, we're hoping to have more demand than space. So if somebody's unable to participate, we just ask them to be honest with us and let us know prior to the event so we can substitute somebody else, because we do have limited seating. We want to maximize participation. Thank you.
I just want to circle back on Brenda and Adriana's comments that, you know, you can kind of make it depending on your workload. We're happy to have you just participate in those dates, and we appreciate any feedback and information you provide us on that date. Out of that, once we kind of finalize these areas, then we'll kind of probably create some teams to keep them moving forward. So depending on staff's interest and or, you know, capacity, they can choose to engage in that or not. It's completely up to each individual staff member's capacity. But you can just come to those workshops, provide your information, and then check in with us later.
I think we just got the big money question. And maybe if I'm interpreting that correctly, if it's about, do we actually have money to do this? And I think we're timing this at a point in time where we are aligning this with our budget development for next year, and certainly the strategic goal in our operating plan will help inform our future budget decisions. So absolutely, we want to make sure we're making the right investments and that we're not just creating a wish list that will never get done. We're going to create a strategic plan that we will make sure gets implemented. So hopefully I answered your question, Joanna.
And Joanna, I know that's kind of the long-term vision that the CAO's office has kind of put out as well. While this is the first time we're doing it, that's why he's aligned the 2-year operational plan with a 2-year budget cycle. This is our first time doing that. And so we're kind of still in the infancy stage of that, but we're really trying to build, I mean, the long-term goal is to have a 2-year operational plan with the 2-year budget so that these objectives that we're working on, the funding is going towards that and aligning what HSD is doing for core and funding nonprofits. So the ultimate goal is to kind of help lead that for the alignment of the money as well as the strategic plan to get there.
Julian, we got a good question. Thank you, Julian, about the question about how we're going to communicate this. Ironically, one of the countywide strategic plans is for HSA to develop a communication plan. So not only do we have that to do at a countywide level, we're committing resources now to bulk up our communications. So we do have the internet page already set up. It's a baby step where we can aggregate and direct people to for more information about the strategic planning process. In addition to that, there'll be a lot more outreach, work teams, workshops coming up certainly. There'll be a lot more opportunity as we communicate and update staff. We're going to have surveys when we get down to the goals and strategies. We at least want to make sure people across HSA are familiar with those goals are going to be and what the potential strategies are. So there'll be a lot of upcoming communication. We're also talking about being mindful of email bandwidth. We all get too many emails these days, so we're trying to be thoughtful about how to best communicate this. It'll probably be a combination of in-person group meetings, wherever meetings are at, operation meetings. We might have certain teams or staff go and present updates. So that's a great question, and that's probably the most critical pathway going forward for us is how do we best make sure that to the fullest extent possible, everybody's up to speed and available. Certainly these virtual meetings we have now, well, I know Jessica, Mimi, and myself, we'd all love and prefer to be face-to-face with each of you, but these have been formats where we're able to broadly have everybody join in at a low barrier phone call and get a quick update. So it'll be a combination of written form, in-person meetings, and probably some more virtual stuff like this. So you guys went from like, I wasn't sure if you're going to have any questions, to all of a sudden the best group of the 3, so nice job. So I think we're at that time where we are now going to talk a little specifically about raising your hand. So there are 75 of you on this call. Our initial goal was to have at least 20% of our participants sign up and volunteer, or at least volunteer their interest to attend one of our workshops. I won't tell you the magic number yet, but we have a high bar already set by one of these virtual meetings, but we're hoping you can break that one. So here's your opportunity. If you're interested and passionate about organizational culture, operational excellence, or community collaboration, now's your opportunity. What we want you to do is select either of the 2 boxes, the Watsonville workshop or the Santa Cruz workshop, just one of them, and enter in your name, the division, and then which topic you're most interested in, number 1, number 2, or number 3. So by way of example, Mickey Mouse wants to go to the Watsonville workshop. Mickey works in the Happy division and is interested in focusing on organizational culture. Minnie, on the other hand, she's ready to go on the Santa Cruz workshop. She works in the Peaceful division and is most interested in, I think, operational excellence. Now, she just moved along. Now, she's interested in community collaboration, number 3. So this is the point where we kind of go a little bit silent. December 11th in Watsonville, December 12th in Santa Cruz. And Santa Cruz specific is at the Santa Cruz Sheriff's Office Community Room, so a little Live Oak area, mid-county, right off the freeway. We will have food. We'll have some get out of your chair and move around activity. The sessions start at 9 a.m. We end at 3. Both should have adequate parking, but we do encourage and strongly encourage carpooling to the extent possible. Julian, to your specific question, it might be offline, but that might be specific to a clinics workshop. The clinics are working on their own mission process. So there's a separate process going on for clinics on December 13th. So this is already exceeding my hopes. We're almost there. We've got 31 participants, not quite to the 50% threshold we've seen in another meeting, but this is good. This is great. I appreciate everybody's interest. So we'll leave this up just for a few more minutes. This will not be your only opportunity. This is the last of our 3 planned virtual workshops. We're going to next be sending out a survey tool to make sure everybody has the opportunity to sign up. And then we'll be working feverishly, probably next week before the Thanksgiving holiday, to finalize all the different staff who've put their hand up and then start working towards affirming who's going to be there. So, wow, we're moving now. We're up to 36. You guys are going for it. Thank you. Jennifer, thank you for your comment about advance notice. That is something we are mindful of and regret not being able to get out fast enough. But thank you for that. And I think we're about ready to move on. And what I just want to finish with is, again, we have 30 participants at each of these workshops, and if anybody for any reason isn't available that week or they're not able to participate because we have too many requests, there is a lot more participation coming up, whether it be virtually or in small work teams, or just being engaging while we're doing presentations in live or in person about questions and comments and suggestions. So we thank you for everybody's interest. I'm humbled by the numbers we're seeing right now. Nearly 40 people have put their hand up, so thank you for that. And I think we're ready to move on and to close this up and talk a little bit about where you can go get more information.
Great, thank you, Marcus. Again, this is Jessica Lime with Ellis Planning Associates. Just want to thank everyone so much for your participation this afternoon. Please review the HSA intranet to review the strategic planning documents. On there, you'll find a focus area and potential goals document in preparation for the Goals and Strategies workshop, as well as the full value statements that Jessica Randolph had mentioned that is also included on the intranet, and then and our PowerPoint presentation is on there as well. So we have just one more request from you, and that is to get your feedback on this virtual presentation. Please let us know what we did well and what we can improve on the pods to the right. Once you've completed providing your feedback, please feel free to exit the meeting and hang up from the call. Again, we greatly appreciate the valuable contributions you've all made to the HSA strategic plan thus far, and we thank you again for your time today.